Everybody, it is August 26, 2025 here with your after hours recap. Let's just start with my favorite name in the market right now, my favorite technical setup. That is Tesla. I bought some yesterday. I added some more, as we were taking out yesterday's highs. Absolutely beautiful close. I am traveling tomorrow, so I probably won't get the opportunity to add too much more. Any kind of morning flushes on it and then starting to reclaim, I would be comfortable adding a little bit more, but obviously traveling, flying, I tend to lean to the, side of risk first. And although I do think that it is going to go higher, I just don't want to get much more aggressive than I already am on it, but definitely the one that I'm keeping an eye on going forward to, get a big chunk of my portfolio in there and hopefully catch a really nice end of year trend. You've got robo-taxis, you've got humanoids, and you've got really just the bet on Elon that, he gets this story turned around. The thing about Tesla is amidst all this bad news, starting a new political party, car dealerships getting burnt down, his loss of the bromance with the Donald, this weekly looks absolutely awesome. I mean, I cannot remember seeing a large cap with effectively this beautiful of a weekly chart. I mean, just super, super tight. Looks fantastic. Typically I like to trim into 1 to 5 or 3 to 5 days of strength. This one to me looks like 3 to 5 weeks, and just sit patiently with a potential winner. It is a winner right now, so hopefully, it remains that way for the rest of the week and going forward. With that said, there is some obvious weakness going on in the software application sector. Obviously, something like NOW, if you look at the daily, looks pretty damn bad. Look at something like CRM, pretty damn bad. Look at something like even CrowdStrike, pretty damn bad. So I don't really know what to make of it, but that's just kind of the environment where we're in right now. You've got your markets of haves, you got your markets of have-nots. Obviously, we've got Nvidia earnings on tap tomorrow. I won't be around for after hours. I will keep an eye on them, once I land, and we'll see kind of what the reaction was. But I don't want to ever get too one-sided before Nvidia's earnings. It could either help all the semi names or it can drag them down. The names that I will be watching in case Nvidia does have a good reaction is obviously AMD. I still think this one has been a monster back above the 200, consolidating nicely. They did have some news today that they're partnering with IBM to do something with some quantum chips. There's that word again. So it's clearly still a spicy word. And AMD, nice 2% update today. Obviously no real move from the open, but still a green 2% day for AMD. AVGO, another name that I'll keep an eye on. TSM, another name that I'll keep an eye on. CRDO and ALAB. So there are some names that continue to act well. There are some names that look fantastic in that space, but I don't want to anticipate anything until we can kind of see what Nvidia's earnings reaction is going to be. Not what their earnings are going to be, what their reaction is going to be. Some pretty nasty round trips in my NBIS. At one point, it was looking, really nice. It goes right into the gap fill zone. Thanks, Nick Drendel. And it's like you get right into the gap fill zone, you uppercut the gap fill, and if anybody watches Nick Drendel's video later today, I can guarantee you he mentions this. And you uppercut it by just a few cents, and then effectively you round trip. I am still holding it. We'll kind of judge what it does tomorrow, but it closed well enough for me to be okay holding it. And the market was pushing well enough for me to just be like, yeah, you know what? Let's just be patient with it. I don't have a ton of longs. ARK continues to act well. Obviously, a bit of a pop there end of day. You had a bit of a pop in Hood. You had a bit of a pop in Palantir. Obviously, Tesla. Some of her bigger holdings. A nice little move up in the NASDAQ. Nice little move up in the S&P 500 towards the end of the day. And right there with it, ARK at the end of the day, a nice little push on a pickup in volume. So I still own this one. CCL I've had for a few months now. And really nice job getting out to 52-week highs. Just very, very quietly. These cruise liners, in particular, my CCL has been fantastic. Nothing to do with it. I am just trailing the 50-day simple moving average with it. So I'm hopeful in time, this thing will end up a whole lot better. towards the end of the day, and I did add some of my covers back on Roblox as we were going red earlier in the day, and I was using high of day as for my stop on the entire of my position. And the market was pushing, and a Roblox was not. Slight bit of relative weakness. I really wouldn't be too comfortable adding any more until we can get below the 50-day. But I did add back a few of the shares that I covered yesterday into this strength. So it's been a pretty good trade so far as I was getting positioned in this thing, around 129 bucks. And, I did get some covers off at 115. So far, so good. And I just wanted to, kind of get repositioned in it if the market starts to show a little bit of weakness. But obviously, if we start to take out that 127.5 level, I will not stay married to the short side on anything. Really, really nice move. I've been talking about these like almost former crypto names, Iron, as they're not really moving with the crypto theme anymore. They're more so moving as data center plays. And Iron, and today I've also been mentioning Hut. This thing had an absolutely monster day today, almost 10.5% up day. Just fantastic. I don't own it, unfortunately, but I think it's acting awesome. So really nice to see from this name. There is new merchandise out there. That's always a positive. There are things that used to be known as crypto stocks that aren't really moving with that theme anymore. So, that is nice to see. And then really, like I said, software application stocks acting a little bit funky. Crude oil names came down just a little bit today. Gold miners continue to rock and roll. I don't own any of these, unfortunately, but something like an NEM just continuing. I mean, one of the leading S&P 500 stocks this year. And if you look at gold, this base is a beauty. Months and months and months and months of sideways. I don't know what's going to happen with this base. All I know is we're hugging the 50-day. We're trying to take out this upper trend line. And, do we go to 35, 36, 37? I have no idea, but it looks good. And more importantly, the stocks, that would kind of speak to the strength of the group, which is the miners, are all acting fantastic. AEM, nice little breakout today. NEM, continued strength. Barrick Gold, just vertical from this little flat pivot. And guys, this is why I absolutely love flat bases. You get the move up, you get nice sideways digestion, you break out from that level, and just every single day getting paid. So really nice to see from a Barrick. The gold mining sector looks fantastic. Software application stocks look horrendous. ARC stocks still look pretty good. I thought, yesterday you had a day where the Russell was underperforming what the NASDAQ was doing, but just like before, the Russell kind of took the lead today on the upside, and ultimately, right back up to basically yesterday's highs. My expectation would be if nothing else changes in the market, we're going to get kind of more of the same that we've seen for the last 2 weeks. Russell outperforming on the way up, and then typically on the way down, not as much underperformance as potentially the NASDAQ. We've been seeing this now for about 2+ weeks. I still believe that this is going to be the predominant trend until positioning is completely neutral or closer to neutral, which we just aren't right now. Credit to the Ethereum buyers last night. They showed up and they bought the hell out of the dip, near the 20-day, and, really nice little bounce back today. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do not like the treasury companies. And also, why would you when there's risk of dilution, right? When you can just buy a double leveraged ETF to the underlying. So I made this point, maybe 10 days ago or so, and I'll make it again. Why would you rather, when Ethereum's up 4.26%, why would you not prefer to own ETHU when it's up 7.99, call it 8% today, over something like BMNR that's up 0.71? Anybody wonder why they're up 0.71? Dilution, right? That's exactly what's going on here. And anybody who's like, but Tom Lee, and they own a bunch of Ethereum, and it's all great and dandy, you've just wasted an entire day owning BMNR over getting yourself positioned in ETHU, and that's on you. If you want to own lagging stocks, own lagging stocks. There are instances, I've talked a lot of shit about all the ETFs that are out there. a double leveraged or a triple leveraged to an underlying asset like an ETHU to an ETH is fantastic. And then you're not open and susceptible to underlying dilution. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. The ETFs in certain instances are better than some of these treasury companies, because these treasury companies, their goal isn't to please you. Their goal is to shove as much stock down your throat and issue as much paper as they possibly can so they can enrich themselves in their own balance sheet. They do not give a shit about your portfolios. Okay? They do not. So please, kind of understand what the hell you're getting into when you buy some of these treasury companies. They're just diluting everybody into oblivion. Your slice of the pie gets smaller and smaller and smaller as they make the pie bigger and bigger and bigger. So, just please kind of be cautious of that. And that was really all I noticed today. You had some nice little moves, and obviously, yesterday something in Rocket Lab, and today this is kind of what went on with a lot of these, bigger movers, right? You're up multiple days in a row. You kind of start to run into a few sellers up here, and you saw the exact same thing with an MP today. That's not to say that these things won't go higher. It's just it's kind of what is going on right now. You're up 3, 4, 5 days in a row. A little bit of a breather is totally fine. Other things are kind of picking up the slack. Most notably, a clean technical setup, chef's kiss in Tesla, which I am in, and trying to make a very big portion of my portfolio so I can just kind of sit back, relax until the end of the year, and hopefully this thing takes us to new all-time highs. Hard to imagine a bull market ending without Tesla making a huge move. That's just me. And maybe I'm wrong. On the flip side of that, I thought Solars today acted pretty decent, right? NXT continues to hold in there pretty well. Run continues to hold in there pretty well. And Sedge continued to hold in there pretty well, if I'm not mistaken. Sedge, where are you at? Apparently I took it off my list. And Sedge continues to hold in there pretty well. Just looking at that chart, how beaten up it is, this is why you got to respect risk. Underneath the 200 simple moving average, guys, it can get pretty nasty, which is why, I look at a stock like CRM, and as much as I recognize they're a great company, below the 200 simple moving average, you just leave it alone. Same thing with the ServiceNow. I don't want to try and guess what the bottom looks like on this thing. I just do not, right? I don't care how good of a company it is. I don't give a shit about any of that. And the same thing goes for United Healthcare. I just don't care, right? You start to live below the 200 simple moving average. Guys, there's been countless examples in history where stocks just implode below the 200, right? There was once a period in time, and I'll just talk about this quickly, where Netflix was once, gapping below, and we can zoom back out a few more years on this thing, where you're gapping below the 200 simple moving average, and it's over with, right? You bought this thing here when it lost the 50. If you didn't respect risk at the 50 and you didn't respect risk at the 200, right? You go from $600 all the way to sub 200 very quickly. And that's not to say it won't recover, right? Sometimes that's what great companies do, but there is no rule out there that says how fast it has to recover, if it has to recover, none of that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Ultimately, I didn't see a whole lot else in the market. I do see Hood. I thought Hood looked fairly interesting on the intraday, and I almost bought some as well. You could just see how many times this thing was rejecting its red to green and just refused to go green until it did. And, that's probably would have been a good little spot to maybe sneak in a few, but I didn't. So, I'm kind of on the outside looking in on Hood right now. No big deal. I did add some more Tesla as we took out yesterday's high, so hopefully that one can stick. Humongous move on an SATS, fantastic to see. But ultimately, I just don't see anything too wrong with the market. Other than maybe software application stocks and particular software stocks. And that's about it. It's nice to see Tesla really working, and hopefully that one can stick. And obviously everything right now kind of hinges on Nvidia's earnings. If Nvidia's earnings are poor, you're going to get the semiconductor kind of spilling over. I will also say that Microsoft, since the earnings gap up and then failure, this thing has come under pressure, and I don't really want to see this thing living underneath the 50 simple moving average, right? Just look at a stock like CrowdStrike. When you start to live underneath the 50 simple, doesn't matter how good of a company you might think they are, they start to live under the 50, just live underneath it, then all of a sudden, right, things can go from bad to worse and quickly. So something to keep in mind going forward. Like I said, I didn't really see anything terribly wrong with the market, so you guys do with that what you will. Nvidia earnings after hours tomorrow, so please be cautious with that. I believe CrowdStrike's earnings are tomorrow too, so something to be aware of. And with that, I will see you guys all on Tuesday. Monday, the market is closed, and I am gone for the remainder of the week to Mexico. So you guys please trade it safely. I won't see you guys tomorrow for pre-market prep, but I hope you guys stay safe out there. I hope the market is fruitful, and I will see you all on Tuesday. Cheers.